air. Back at you with another video. First and foremost, I want to give all honor and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, right, the Heavenly Father, and His Son that the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, right? So, brothers and sisters can see from the topic of this video we're going to be touching on, right? It says, this is a deep breakdown going into Tobit 14, right, from verses from 4 to 5, right? Who who is it talking about? Who is it mentioning in this scripture, in this precept, right? That we're going to be breaking down, right? Because Tobit is mentioning, you know, how can I say it, a prophecy, right, to come to pass, right? And we did touch on this before, right? But the video did not come out well. The audio was really bad, and it kept, skipping over and going back. So, most high willing, brothers and sisters, can hear me very well, and Lord willing that the video can be a great edification and no interruptions, right? So, if any brother and sister come in here, Baba Gashad, give me a strong con. If you can hear me, give me a strong con. Give me a strong con if you can hear me. Baba Gashad. Then we're just gonna go ahead and just kick this off real quick. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Lord willing, actually, I'm gonna just check something real quick. Just to check the audio real quick and make sure the video is running smoothly. You can bear with me. Okay, con. So everything is running well through the Spirit. All praise the Most High. So yeah, Lord willing, Most High willing, the video can run smoothly with no interruptions. Most High willing. All right. So through the Spirit, I wanted to touch on this because I had a brother that asked me this question to break this down to him, and through the Spirit, the Most High allowed me to break this down, and in this through the Spirit, that the Lord allowed me to break this down because it's a lot to this, even though we know the brother Tobit, he was just not just known for like giving alms and being there for his brethren and stuff like that, but he knew about these prophecies, right? He knew about these certain things, that come to pass and whatnot. Even within this chapter or the chapter before, he was talking about the kingdom of heaven, right? Right. It's talking about the kingdom of heaven that's come down, talking about us, right? And talking about how the new kingdom, the heaven to be, right, on earth, right? So he knew about these prophecies. So we can't just say he's not having these certain things that he talked about is, all just alms and stuff, but he's talking about prophecy. So that's why I wanted to touch on this through the Spirit and break this down, just for our brothers and sisters, that have read Tobit and, that probably brushed past this and then really go a little deeper into it. Now we're going to go into it, right? So let's go to Tobit. Let's go to Tobit. Most High willing, the audio is good too. If brothers and sisters can give me a strong con just in case, if the audio and stuff is going in and out, just let me know. But if it sounds good, just give me a strong con. All praises. So this is Tobit chapter 14 and starting at verse 4. Now we gotta remember this too. All right, Tobit, when you're reading the first chapter, right? Tobit in Northern Kingdom, right? Because Tobit is a part of the Northern Kingdom, right? He's from the tribe of Naphtali, right? They was in the captivity of the Assyrians, all right? So this is him, talking to his son, right, Tobias, informing him and letting him know this. Right. This is Tobit chapter 14 verse 4. Go into media, right, my son, for I surely believe those things which Jonah the prophet spoke of Nineveh, that it shall be overthrown, and that for a time. Slacky, so I want to break this part down first. Right, so we know that Jonah, right, the prophet Jonah, he prophesied that the overthrow of Nineveh was going to happen, right? And that overthrow was between around eighth, like around like the eighth, or eighth century, BCE, right? Well, you can look this up too. So he prophesied against Nineveh of the overthrowing that the Lord was going to do to it, right? Reading on, and it says, "And that a time, Slaki, and that for a time, peace shall rather be in medium." So right, you had the Babylonians that overthrew Nineveh, right? Actually, I want to get this one. Let me get this person real quick. Let's see. Let's see if I can find this person. Okay, that's the thing for it. Bear with me. Right, so this is Nahum chapter, what's that, chapter 1? Chapter 1 and verse 12. It says, "Thus saith the Lord, though they be quiet, and likewise many, yet thus shall they be cut down when he shall pass through. Though I have afflicted thee, I will afflict thee no more. For now I will break his yoke from off thee, and will burst thy bonds in sunder. And the Lord hath given a commandment concerning thee, that no more of thy name be sown out of the house of thy gods. Will I cut off graven image and molten image. I will make thy grave, and for thou art thou." Right? So the Lord overthrew Nineveh, right? He overthrew and had the Babylonians overthrew them, right? And that was around the time of the 8th century BC, right? So we have to remember that, right? That's when around the time, that's when the Babylonians came in to like in power, right? So like that's when you had, the Babylonians come into power, right? And then that's when you had, the Medes, right? That's how the Medes and the Babylonians coexist, right? So that's when they had that peace and time because it was peace in media, right? So let's go back to that, right? Let's go back to that. Right. So that a time peace shall rather be in media, and that our brethren shall lie scattered in the earth from that good land. So that's talking about when our people was taken away from the good land, right? So when you had the Babylonians, right, when they came into power, right, they took our people, right, into where? Babylon, and overthrew them, right? So I can let me get this real quick. I want to go to Second Kings. Second Kings real quick. This is Second Kings chapter 25, and I'm gonna start at verse 1, right? And it came to pass in the ninth year of his reign, in the 10th month, Salaki, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, came, he and all his hosts, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it, and they built forts against it round about. So this is them about to siege, right, invade Jerusalem, right? Reading on, Salaki, reading on, and it says, and the city was besieged until the 11th year of the king Zedekiah, and on the ninth day of the fourth month, the famine prevailed in the city, and there was no bread for the people of the land. Right, so there was no bread, right? The way how they did, they cut them off, right? They cut them off from all types of resources to to stop them from being able to get these certain things. So resources they can come in. So that's how a certain besiege happens. Like that's how they did with us when in like 70 AD when they overthrew Jerusalem, right? When the Romans overthrew Jerusalem in 70 AD, that was them besieging and cutting us off from certain resources, right? Even the curses that would happen, right? That's what if we went off from keeping the laws commandments, right? Those certain things will befall us, right? I'm gonna just go ahead and get it real quick. Also, I want to get this through the spirit. So lucky. So lucky. I want to get straight to the point. Okay, I'm gonna start. Deuteronomy 28. I'm gonna start at verse. I'm gonna start at verse. Well, I'm gonna start at verse 51. And it says, "He shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee, neither Slaki, either corn, wine, or oil, or the incense of thy kin, or Slaki, increase of thy kin, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest throughout all thy land, and he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee." Right, so that is that curse when our people went off, right? Because you had other kings before King Zedekiah, right? Before him, you had other kings, going off and leading our people to astray by not keeping the Lord's commandments, worshiping other gods and all this other madness, man. Actually, this wasn't part of the lesson, but I'm gonna just through the spirit, I'm gonna just grab these couple precepts, right? Try to grab a couple of these precepts real quick. um, so lucky. This is most lucky. Bear with me. Let me get this real quick. Okay, come. This is. I think this one. So lucky. Bear with me. I was just thinking about this precept. Salutations. Right. This is Lamentations chapter 1. And I'm going to start at verse. This whole thing is good. I'm going to start at verse 3. And it says, Jerusalem is going into captivity because of the affliction and because of the great servitude. She dwelleth among the heathen. She findeth no rest, and all her persecutors overtook her between the streets. Right? So the Lord overthrew Jerusalem, right? Right? Overthrew Jerusalem is in Judah. So he overthrew him because our people were going off and following amongst the heathen, right? And that's why the Lord allowed the heathen to do what they did, right? That's why, through the Spirit, the Lord allowed the heathen to overthrow Jerusalem and take our people into captivity, right? This whole thing is good. I'm gonna jump down a little bit more. This is I'm gonna jump down to verse. I'm gonna jump down to verse. I'm gonna jump down to verse 7. Jerusalem, remember in the days of her affliction and of her miseries, all her pleasant things that she had in the days of old, when her people fell into the hand of the enemy, and none did help her. The adversary saw her and did mock at her Sabbaths. See that? So through the spirit, right? Tobit was talking about how our people were going to be laid scattered, basically taken out the land and put into another land, right? Taken out the land and be put in different other places, right? Through the spirit. So that good land wasn't inhabited by our people because he's seen our people in other lands, right? So I'm gonna finish that out. I'm gonna go back to Second Kings real quick. Salaki. So yeah, let's get back to it. All right. I'm gonna read. Let me get back to it. Right. Second Kings chapter 25 and verse 4. And it says, and the city was broken up, and all the men of war fled by night by the way of the gate between two walls, which is by the king's gate. It's like a king's garden. Now the Chaldees were against the city round about, and the king went the way towards the plain. Right, I'm gonna jump down a little bit. Verse 8, and it reads, it says, and in the 5th month of the 7th day of the month, which is the 19th year of the king Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came. It's like I can't say that. Nabuzard, I can't pronounce that. This the captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon unto Jerusalem, and he burnt the house of the Lord and the king's house and all the houses of Jerusalem and every great man house burnt with fire. Right. So let me go back to this because that's what the rest of this chapter, rest of this verse is going to be talking about. It says, let me go back to it. Tobit chapter 14, verse 4, jumping down where I just left off, and it says that our brethren shall lie scattered in the earth from that good land, and Jerusalem shall be desolate, and the house of the Lord, the house of Yahweh, in it shall be burnt and shall be desolate for a time. Right. Let me read that one more time. I just left off at verse 9. 2 Kings chapter 5 and verse 9. And he burnt the house of the Lord and the king's house and all the houses of Jerusalem and every great man's house burnt he with fire. So he saw this and he understood this, this prophecy that this was going to happen, right? And it came to pass, right? He understood it and it came to pass, and that's how you know. And to people that don't really want to get into the apocrypha, saying that these books are false and whatnot, that's a lie. These books are canon, man. They go back to a lot. They literally connect with a lot. You can't just say that these books are not canon, man. They are, right? You see how they they put together, man. Originally, they was already put together, but the Protestant church took them out, man, around the 1800s, right? So, like I was saying, through the Spirit, Tobit saw that prophecy, or he understood that prophecy, and he related it unto his son Tobias, right? Right. See, is it more on that? No, that's it on that. Right. So we can jump down to we can jump down to the next verse. Verse 15. So, all praise the Most High. All praise to the Most High. Verse 15. Oh, it's lucky. Tobit chapter 14, verse 5. And it reads, and it says, and that again, Yahweh will have mercy on them. Right. And it's talking about how the Most High will have mercy on our people, right? In the time of our affliction, in the time of our captivity, us being in our certain captivities, he had mercy on us, right? He had the audio went low. Is it good now? Is the audio good now? Probably because all that movement is back. Okay, all praise the Most High. Read that again. It says, this is Tobit 14, verse 5. And that again, Yahweh will have mercy on them. So the Lord is going to be showing mercy unto our people again for us to be able to come back to keep the laws, commandments, back in the land, man. Back in the land to be able to keep the laws, commandments, and rebuild that temple right back unto him. Where you had many of our forefathers that had part of that, right? Right. You had Zerubbabel, you had Joshua, you had Ezra, then you had Nehemiah to come rebuild the walls. Right. So you had those other men to rebuild the temple and rebuild the walls. So the Lord showed mercy unto them to do those certain things. Right. and bring them again into the land, where they shall build a temple, but not like to the first, until the time that the age be fulfilled. Right, so the time to come for them to actually go do that. Right, and afterward they shall return from all places of their captivity and build up Jerusalem. Right, so to build up the temple and to build up Jerusalem. So you had, like I said before, you had Zerubbabel, Joshua, and Ezra, and then you had Nehemiah, Ezra, and many other men with them to go rebuild Jerusalem, rebuild that temple. Right? Shalaki. Where I left off at. Right. Afterward, they shall return from all the places of their captivity and build up Jerusalem gloriously, and the house of the Lord shall be built in it forever with a glorious building, as the prophets have spoken thereof. Right. And you got to remember too, the Lord showing them mercy. Right. He had these other kings like Cyrus, right? King Cyrus of Persia. He put it upon his spirit for us to go back into the land to rebuild it. Right. He hold on, let me get that real quick. He put it back. He put it in his spirit to rebuild the temple, to rebuild Jerusalem, to have his men, the men of the Lord, right, to go back to rebuild it, right? So this is Second Chronicles. Yeah, Second Chronicles chapter 36 and verse 22. It says, now in the first year of Cyrus the king of Persia, that the word of the Lord spoken by the mouth of Jeremiah, right? Just like Tobit said that the prophets have said this, right? Salaki, Salaki, might be accomplished, and the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, the king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom and put it also in writing, saying, right? So when the king writes down a proclamation, he's proclaiming that, right? That's law in the land, right? And that's law unto other kings that's gonna be after him, right? They're gonna have to keep that. So once this king set this as law and have it stamped, right now other kings have to follow that. That's going to be coming after him, right? Verse 23, thus saith Cyrus the king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth. Now he's saying he's the king, right? And this is the time when the Persians was really, ruling. Like they was ruling. Nobody could really go against them. Everybody was following after them and whatnot. So now, when he's saying, everyone has to listen to. Everybody has to follow what he's talking about, right? Slacking. All the kingdoms of the earth have the Lord Yahweh of heaven given me, and he have charged me to build him an house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah, who is there among you of all his people, the Lord his God be with him and let him go up. So he's saying, man, who of his people are going to go and rebuild Jerusalem, rebuild the house of the Lord, right? His people, the Most High's people. He didn't say, oh, of our people. He said of the Most High God's people. Now, like I said, you had many of our forefathers that stepped up and went to go do that, right? Actually, I'm gonna jump over I'm gonna jump over to Salaki, to Ezra, right? The next book, right over. This is Ezra chapter 1. Yeah, I'm gonna start at verse, because most of the beginning of that chapter is saying the same thing from the last chapter or from the last book. I'm gonna start at verse 4, right? This is Ezra chapter 1 and verse 4. And it says, whosoever remaineth in any place where he sojourn, let the men of his place help him with silver and with gold and with goods and with beasts, besides the free will offering for the house of Yahweh that is in Jerusalem. Right? Jumping down, right? Verse 5. Then arose the chief of the fathers of Judah and Benjamin and the priests and the Levites with all them whose spirit Yahweh have raised raised to go up to build the house of the Lord which is in Jerusalem. See that? All praise the Most High. So the Lord, so the Lord stirred up the spirit onto the king to have our people go rebuild the temple. And the Lord put it upon our people to go do that, man. Right? And he had our people to go do that in sincerity and all of that, man. Right? Because they didn't want to be in captivity. They didn't want to be amongst those kings. They wanted to go back and serve their God, man. Back at home. Right? Right? Back at home. Right? Let me see if there's any more I want to get on. Yeah, it's a lot more. It says, all they that were about them strengthened their hands with vessels of silver, and with gold, and with goods, and with beasts, and with precious things, besides all that was willingly offered. Also, Cyrus the king brought forth the vessels of the house of the Lord, which Nebuchadnezzar have brought forth out of Jerusalem, and have put them in the house of his gods. So Nebuchadnezzar and his peoples, his hosts, they took the vessels out of the house of the Lord and brought it into the house of their gods. But now Nebuchadnezzar, within this chapter, right, is saying that he was going to give that back to the men of the Lord to place back into the temple once it's rebuilt, right? So all praise the Most High. As more on that. It goes into all the things that was placed, all the silver, all the everything that was in there, the menorahs, everything that was in there, gold, everything that was placed in the temple will be brought back into the temple once it was rebuilt. Right. So right. So I'm moving on from here. I got a couple more I want to get. I want to get a couple more on that verse that we was touching on. Right. So, all right. So through the spirit and power of the Most High, put it on them for our people to go back to return. Right. So this is Ezra chapter 7, and I'm gonna start at verse. I'm gonna start at verse 27. It says, "Blessed be the Lord, Yahweh of our fathers, which have put such a thing as this in the king's heart." Right. So the Lord put it in that king's heart. Right. It's a beautiful thing, and that's showing that mercy. That's showing that mercy unto his people to do that. Right. Such a thing as this in the king's heart and his mind, to beautify the house of the Lord which is in Jerusalem, and have extended mercy, right? And have extended mercy unto me before the king and his counselors, and before all the king's mighty princes, and I was strengthened as the hand of the Lord my God was upon me, and I gathered together out of Israel chief men to go up with me. Right? So you have the chief men that went with him, to go rebuild the house of the Lord. Right? I'm gonna get this in Nehemiah. So you have Zerubbabel and many other men, right, that went with them, chiefly from out of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Right. So this is Nehemiah chapter one. Chapter one, and I'm gonna start at verse. I'm gonna start at verse 3. And it says, "And they said unto me, the remnant that are left of the captivity, there is the province, are in the great affliction and reproach. The wall of Jerusalem also is broken down. The gates thereof are burnt with fire. And it came to pass when I heard those words, it's like these words, that I sat down and wept and mourned certain days, fat and fast and prayed before the God of heaven, Yahweh." Right? So this is when Nehemiah received the news what happened. He received the news what happened to the land, received the news what happened to the house of the Lord, man. He received these things, man, and he wept, right? And this is you really caring about your people, your land, right? And the service of the Most High. That's showing so much care. He literally wept and fast, right? He literally wept and fast for that, man, right? It's not a lot of brothers and sisters that's worried about doing that, man, right? They're not fasting and weeping, for the downfall of their people. They're not caring. That's how much care that our forefathers had, man. They cared about their people. They cared about the service of the Lord. They cared for the land that was given to them rightfully by the hand of the Most High. And that's how we got to be in these last days, man. All right. So let me keep reading. And said, I beseech thee, O Lord. Right. So this is the prayer. This is his prayer, Nehemiah's prayer. And I'm gonna read it again. It says, and said, I beseech thee, O Lord, Yahweh of heaven, the great and terrible God, that keep covenant, that keepeth covenant and mercy for them that love him and observe his commandments. Let thine ear now be attentive and thy eyes open, that thou mayest hear the prayer of thy servant, which I pray before thee now, day and night, for the children of Israel thy servants, and confess the sins of the children of Israel, which we now sinned against thee. Right? He didn't say, oh, just, certain people of the land that sinned. He said, we, us as a collective, right, sinned against them. Right? We as a collective have sinned against our Lord. Right? It's not no I and team, man. Right? We all sinned against the Lord. Even for some that kept the law to the T, still had to get punished with the rest of the nation because of what our people have done, right? Both I and my father's house have sinned. We have dealt very corruptly against thee, and have not kept the commandments, nor the statutes, nor the judgments which thou commandest thy servant Moses. Remember, I beseech thee, the word of thou commandest, it's like the word that thou commandest thy servant Moses, saying, if ye transgress, I will scatter you abroad among the nations, right? But if ye turn unto me and keep my commandments and do them, though there were of you scattered out of the uttermost parts of the heaven, yet will I gather them from thence, and will bring them unto the place that I have chosen to set my name there. So this is the Lord, right? This is you. He's saying those were the curses, right? If you didn't follow after the Lord, you will be set. You'll be scattered, man. Right, let's get that. Let's get that real quick. Did it right. So let me get this real quick. So our forefathers was referring back to the law, man, and they knew what would happen if they didn't keep the law's commandments, right? This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64, right? And it says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. See that? Reading on, even the next verse is good. It says, amongst these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest, but the Lord will give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. These are the curses, man. And these are the curses that Nehemiah was referring to, right? That our people will fall amongst if they didn't keep the law's commandments. They will be scattered unto other nations, right? Serving other gods and not having no rest, no ease, no none of that, right? And now, the Lord was showing mercy unto them, right? There's a lot more to this. Yeah, that's good on that. I'm gonna jump down. I'm gonna jump to, and this is a great chapter. I highly suggest brothers and sisters dive in there. Especially the prayer. The prayer is from 5 on down to 11. It's a beautiful prayer. I highly suggest brothers and sisters finish that out. But due to timing, I'm gonna try to finish this out. So this is Nehemiah chapter 2. And I'm gonna start verse 1, and it reads. It says, it's like, and it came to pass in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of Artaxerxes, the king, that wine was before him, and I took up the wine, right? Because Nehemiah he's the wine bearer of the king, right? Actually, I'm gonna jump back. I'm gonna jump back to verse chapter 1 just to prove that. Chapter 1, verse 11, it says, O Lord, I beseech thee, let now thine ear be attentive to the prayer of thy servant, and to the prayer of thy servants, and it's like, who desire to fear thy name and prosper. I pray thee, thy servant, this day, and grant him mercy in the sight of this man, for I was the king's cupbearer. So Nehemiah is the cupbearer of Artaxerxes, right? When you read into the next chapter, right? So let's go back to the next chapter again, right? So Nehemiah chapter 2 and verse 1 again, right? It says, and it came to pass in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of Artaxerxes the king, that wine was before him, and I took up the wine and gave it unto the king. Now I have not been before time sad in his presence. So you can see from his countenance, he was real sad. He was real low, right? He never been like that around the king, never at all. He was always uplifting. He never was sad or none of that, right? Wherefore the king said unto me, so this is the king noticing, why is thy countenance sad, seeing thou art not sick? This is nothing else but sorrow of the heart. Then I was very sore afraid. So he was scared to really bring that out and to explain that to him, right? But through the spirit and power of the Most High, he was able to do that. And said unto the king, let the king live forever. Why should not my countenance be sad? When the city, the place of my fathers, the sepulchre, lay waste, and the gates thereof are consumed with fire. Then the king said unto me, for what doest thou make request? So I prayed to the God of heaven, Yahweh, and I said unto the king, if it please the king, and if thy servant have found favor in thy sight, that thou wouldest send me unto Judah, unto the city of my father's sepulchres, that I may build it. And the king said unto me, the queen also sitting by him, for how long shall thy journey be, and when wilt thou return? So it pleased the king to send me, and I set him, so I set him a time. Right. So all in all, the king had mercy upon Nehemiah to go do that, to go rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. That's the Lord having his mercy. He answered his prayer. He answered his prayer, and that was a sincere prayer to go rebuild back the walls of Jerusalem, to go rebuild Jerusalem. That is a very sincere prayer. And brothers and sisters got to keep in mind that too. When you pray, you want to have a sincere prayer. You don't want to just be having any old prayer, right? Always make it sincere. Something that can help benefit, not just benefit you, but benefit others for your nation and for your people, right? But that's how you know the Lord answered his prayer. The Lord pitied upon Artaxerxes' spirit and stirred it up to have Nehemiah go rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, right? So that's the end on that. But what I wanted to say too, as well, on the second fold, right? Because now brothers and sisters brothers and sisters now understand what that prophecy was going into, right? It was mentioning how Tobit understood this prophecy from the prophets of old, that men were going to come to rebuild the house of the Lord and Jerusalem. But on a second fold, right, you have it talking about our people as well being rebuilt in these last days, right? Because you got to look at it in a spiritual sense, right? Because this happened physically, but now spiritually, right, you have in these last days us being rebuilt. We being rebuilt right now, right? We are Jerusalem. We are the city. Because without us being the city is not going to be holy. It's not going to be kept the way how it's supposed to be kept. You can clearly see what's going on right now in Jerusalem. Amalek just said he's about to have the biggest, gayest parade in Tel Aviv or in Jerusalem in general. In Jerusalem in general. So that land is not going to be the same way how it once was before. It's not. So we are those people. We are the city. We are Jerusalem. We are Israel, and we are being rebuilt right now, right? And the Lord is having mercy on brothers right now to come back to rebuild Jerusalem. He's calling on all brothers, man. All brothers that didn't know nothing now know something. And they're going out each and every day, coming on YouTube, making videos, rebuilding the nation as we speak. And once that number hits, man, we out of here. And then that's when we're gonna be able to go into the land. But that's when you're gonna have our enemies rebuilding, right, the city, right? Because so I can do this real quick. Yeah, I'll take this one. So do this real quick. This is Isaiah 61. I'm gonna start at verse. I'm gonna start at verse 4, and it says, "And they shall build the old waste." Slucky, slucky. They shall raise up the former desolation, desolations, and they shall repair the waste cities and the desolation of many generations. Right, so the Lord is going to have these heathen rebuild our waste cities because it's a lot of bombing going on over there, and especially with World War III, right, where we already kind of technically dang near there. They just not officially saying it, but we there, man. We there. Look at all the other wars, the other wars before that. It was a slow build, but they was in war. It took time for them to say, "Oh, we are actually in war," but they was already in war. So don't let them fool you. We in war right now, right? It's just not declared, and they're not sending out to go to grab us up and stuff like that right now. But like I was saying, with all these wars and whatnot, it's bombs being thrown into our city right now. You got buildings falling, bro. You got rubble and all that stuff going on over there. I wouldn't want to go in that land right now anyway, right? And I know some brothers and sisters want to go visit the land right now. If you want to, you can. I just won't do it. And many other brothers said the same thing, man. Because I don't want to be in that land right now, seeing, knowing all the things that they're doing in my land right now. I don't want to be there. I want to be there when the time is appointed. I want to be there when the time is appointed and all evil and wickedness is out. And I never have to leave. I don't want to go and then gotta leave. I don't want that. I want to be there forever. And that's the same mindset that you want to have. I don't. I don't want to go there, man. I don't want to go there right now. I want to go there when the time is appointed. Right? Let's keep reading. And it says, "And the strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and your van dressers, Slaki. And but ye shall be Slaki, vine dressers, your vine dressers, but ye shall be named the priests of the Lord, Men shall call you the ministers of our God, and ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall be shall ye boast yourselves. Right? I want to jump down a little bit more. Yeah, that's it on that. That's all. But like I said, on another fold that is talking about us, right? Where you read in Revelation chapter 21, that new city is talking about us. We gonna be that new city that's been rebuilt and brought back onto the land, right? And we're gonna have our enemies to rebuild the waste cities, right? So most high willing, this video was edifying, man. Most high willing, I got to touch on these certain points. Most high willing, I got to answer, certain brothers and sisters questions, and even with certain things, sisters and brothers probably forgot. Lord willing, just kind of like just snap back, right? Kind of retouched on that. Hopefully, brothers and sisters took notes if they needed to. Lord willing, they did, right? And I'm gonna get my ending precept, closing precept, right? This is Revelation chapter 22 and verse 14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. Right? And that's the 12 gates that's set up for the 12 tribes of Israel. Right? And most high willing, brothers and sisters, continue to keep the laws, commandments, so that mercy and grace can continually be upon you. And that you can be able to see that beautiful kingdom that is going to be set up and established for us. Right. So with that, Kwame Yasharala, Shalom.